It's a beautiful day out there. Time to explore. Today we're off to visit Fort Rucker. Looking forward to this trip, and what I'm going to do at the beginning here is just let my dash cam run so you can get an idea of the condition of the roads to get there. You are going to be on non-paved roads for a good distance, and down below I'll leave the turn-by-turn directions, but I thought I'll let the dash cam run. You can see what it's like. You can see how much the truck is jumping around. I won't do any video stabilization, so you can get a good idea of what you're looking at. I cannot imagine that many vehicles that cannot make this trip. You'd have to be sitting awfully low to the ground for one or two crossings where you might have water, but any kind of vehicle should make it. So just for the next couple minutes, I want to talk about Fort Rucker itself, a little bit about its history, then get into the video part where we're actually touring the fort, and I'll give you some more history afterwards as we're touring. So I hope you enjoy. Make sure you check below. I'll leave GPS directions, a little bit of details about the fort. I'll put a timestamp in to let you know where the actual video at the fort starts. So if you're not interested in watching the road, hearing the history of the fort, you can just jump right ahead to see what is worth seeing there. So let's get started. Camp Rucker is a former U.S. Army post located on the U.S. Forest Service land in Cochise County, Arizona. The site is located on a creek on the old San Bernardino Ranch adjacent to the south side of the Chiricahua Wilderness in the Douglas Ranger District of the Coronado National Forest, and has walk-in public access. The remnants of Camp Rucker, which remain today, include officers' quarters, a bunkhouse, a sheltered latrine, a commissary warehouse, and a bakery. Today, the surviving buildings are stabilized and stand adjacent to a popular campground. In the summer, a firefighting crew stations at a nearby administrative site. Camp Rucker was a remote Arizona Territory cavalry post that became a ranching hub. In 1872, the government set aside the southeastern corner of the territory as the Chiricahua Indian Reservation. 4 years later, it closed the reservation and relocated the Chiricahuas north to the San Carlos Apache Indian Reservation. The reservation conditions at San Carlos were terrible: overcrowded, little grass for livestock to graze or game to hunt, bad water, and hot temperatures. Deaths of the members of the Apache Nation at the reservation were numerous, especially from malaria, a disease previously almost unknown among them. All of this in turn sparked a period of retaliation by the Apache forces. In March 1878, to extend the Army's reach into the region, Brigadier General Orlando B. Wilcox, commander of the Department of Arizona, ordered establishment of a military supply camp in the White River Canyon. Originally called simply Camp Supply, and manned by Company C of the 6th Cavalry and 2 companies of Indian Scouts, it supported 135 men in all. Camp Supply served as the base for 2 companies of Indian Scouts, Company C commanded by 2nd Lieutenant John A. Rucker, and Company D led by 1st Lieutenant Austin Henley. Each company included between 32 and 40 scouts, who enlisted for 6 months at a time. During the first few months of the camp's operation, the nighttime chanting and singing of Henley's scouts resulted in complaints by enlisted soldiers. An order to relocate the Indian scouts at least 3/4 of a mile from camp was subsequently issued. Battles of this unit with Apache forces took place September 17, 1878, 10 days from September 20th to 30th, 1778, September 29, 1879, October 27, 1879, and April 7, 1880. A small community grew up around the fort, as the military method of obtaining necessary supplies was through civilian contractors. An excerpt from Major General Irving McDowell's 1879 description of a typical military post in the Pacific Coast region suggests these included laundresses on the post. The Army officially abandoned Camp Rucker in July 1881, but still used it intermittently until 1896. It was one of the temporary military stations in the campaign attacking the Apache tribes led by Geronimo and Cochise. First known as Camp Supply, the name was changed on October 1, 1878, in honor of Lieutenant John Anthony Tony Rucker. Lieutenant Rucker was the son of Quartermaster General Daniel H. Rucker and the brother of Irene Rucker, the wife of General Philip Sheridan. On July 11, 1878, Lieutenant Rucker died in an unsuccessful attempt to save the life of a fellow soldier, Lieutenant Austin Henley, when the two tried to cross a nearby river which had swelled following a rainstorm. A party including Captain Buford, Lieutenant Henley, Lieutenant Rucker, Jack Dunn, and others were returning from Captain Madden's camp lower down the canyon where they were drawing rations. They had reached the point near the head of the White River's Paul Canyon, where the White River rises. As they were about to cross, a water spout burst, and water came down the canyon with terrible force. Jack Dunn advised against crossing, but Lieutenant Henley said they could swim. Dunn crossed safely, but when he saw Henley on his horse crossing after him, and the next minute go under. Dunn yelled for help, and several soldiers came with ropes. However, Henley, stunned by the large rocks that were in the current, was unable to clutch the ropes. Just then, Lieutenant Rucker, who had successfully crossed, entered the water with his horse to save Henley, but both succumbed immediately to the current. Captain Buford had also jumped in to save Henley and was almost gone, but the soldiers were able to lasso him and drag him to safety. The soldiers located the bodies of Henley and Rucker about a mile downstream by evening. The remains of the deceased officers initially were buried at Fort Bowie, and following the closing of that fort, both were reinterred at Presidio, San Francisco. Lieutenant Rucker's remains later were moved to Arlington National Cemetery. So here's the entrance. I always like these. They're kind of designed. And unfortunately my gimbal died a day or two ago on this trip. And I don't carry a spare gimbal. So that's how you get in. Kind of cool. And then we have the marker. Always excellent advice at historic sites. Yeah. Everybody knows, leave no trace, take it in, take it out, all that kind of good stuff. So I can't think they send too many people here to do maintenance that often. So well, we made it to the ruins. Let's give you a little scan here. Yeah, I'm guessing the entrance is right this way. I think it's very nice, the layout here. See, they have this nice established path to take you from building to building. And there in the distance you can see a lovely bride standing in the doorway. So yeah, layout's very nice. Makes it easy with markers telling you what the buildings are. Sweet. I do believe we have a spring here, because there's definitely water coming out. You can hear it bubbling. It's running off. Wow, amazing. So I wanted to spend a minute or two talking about what happened to the area after the military left. Camp Rucker was a ranching headquarters for over 80 years. The first owner was Michael Gray, who was a justice of the peace in Tombstone, Arizona. He moved to Camp Rucker in 1883 under the privileges of squatter's claim. He was strongly committed to controlling the area, stopping cattle rustling, and he created with his family Old Camp Rucker Ranch, covering about 22,000 acres. Theodore Hampy, a German artist, and his wife Matilda purchased Old Camp Rucker Ranch from Gray in 1896. Matilda's description of the ranch upon first seeing it was, "Just before arriving at the ranch, we had to drive up a short, steep hill. The old road was located near the bakery. Coming upon the house suddenly, originally the commissary, a pleasant surprise awaited me, for there was a large adobe house, set in a mass of flowers, many kinds of shrubs and trees. There was also a vegetable garden in the corner. The Hampys raised goats and cows. They were also artists, some of whose illustrations and watercolors depict life in Rucker Canyon." Charles and Mary Rack bought the ranch from the Hampys in 1919. Charlie Rack was a cattle rancher. Mary Rack from San Francisco was new to ranching, but soon adapted to the way of life. She described many of her experiences in books she wrote while living at the ranch. Two of the best known are A Cowman's Wife, published in 1934, and Mountain Cattle, published in 1936. The Racks branded their cattle OCR for Old Camp Rucker. The Racks sold their ranch to Mrs. Ella Dana of New York in 1943. She used this historic property as a restful retreat before transferring it to the Forest Service in 1970. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching. If you like this sort of material, content, please think about hitting the subscribe button, notification bell, give it a thumbs up, leave a comment. And how can I summarize Camp Rucker? Would I travel cross country to come here? No. And out west, we have many historic sites like this. And it's out of the way. You're driving 45 minutes down dirt roads. But I think it's important to come and visit sites like this because you're basically paying respect to those who served. This was only a military camp for 2 years, but they were out here risking their lives, opening up the West. And it's good for us to remember the sacrifices they made, the duty they served, and what they did to help make this country what this country is today. So again, hope you enjoyed the video. Have yourself a blessed day.